Namaskar and hello everybody. I'm here to talk about the National Curriculum Framework. National Curriculum Framework for the foundational years. That is the main difference between the NEP of the previous years and this NEP. This NEP-A has come out with the new term foundational years, which means it has clubbed 3 years of early years and 2 years of primary together and considered them as the foundation of education. And that is why this NEP brings to us NCFs for every level. This is the first NCF that has been released. It is for the foundational years. And as you can see on the screen now, this is the cover page of the NCF. But if you will see at the top left-hand corner, you will see that little design, right? It's called the Mobius symbol. So the Mobius symbol is what makes this entire document, this motif of the Mobius, is what actually gives us the message of what this entire document is all about. Because the Mobius stands for something which is perpetual, ongoing, developing. And that is what this NCF says, that we want education to be an ongoing, developing process. It's a never-ending process. There is no start and a beginning. It's a development that is ongoing, and that is what we need to keep in mind when we are trying to understand and implement the NCF foundational years. What is foundational years and why are we talking about brain development and everything? You know, it's so nice that people nowadays throw that phrase around. The first 6 years are meant for brain development, etc. But what is it? What is this brain development that we are talking about? If you look at the poster on the right, it says, raise your hand if you learnt this before you were 6 years old. And look at the amount of skills given in that poster. You learnt all this in the first 6 years of your life. After that, you only enhanced those skills or learned how to do more with those skills. But the foundation of those skills you got in your first 6 years. And that is the importance of the first 6 years. And now for the first 8 years in the foundational thing. From brain development to school preparedness to improved learning outcomes, equality, justice, employability, everything, the prosperity of a country depends on what that country invests in the first 8 years now. And that is going to be the most important takeaway from this National Curriculum Framework. So as you go through the National Curriculum Framework with your team, with your school, it's a 360-page document, but you don't have to get scared of the 360 pages. The beginning of the pages are more about the contents, etc. The last pages are more about the annexures required. But there's a lot of wealth in this NCF, and that's what I'm going to take you through in my presentation. But with this NCF, I would also tell you to go through 4 more documents. One is Nipun. Nipun is National Initiative for Proficiency in Reading with Understanding and Numeracy. Nipun is a very important document because our goal is foundational literacy and numeracy. The second document that you should go through is Vidya Pravesh. Vidya Pravesh basically helps the pre-primary children or the early years children or the kindergarten children transit to grade 1 and 2. So these 2 documents extremely important. The other 2 documents which I would urge you to go through are guidelines for design and implementation of early learning programs, which is by UNICEF. It has some excellent examples of lesson plans, etc. And NCERT a few years back came out with the preschool curriculum. This document is again a very essential document. So please go through that also. And the last 2 documents which I would like you to go through are Experiential Learning, Nayi Talim by SCRT Chandigarh. It talks about Mahatma Gandhi's take in the Nayi Talim about experiential learning. And the second document is again by NCERT. It's a bibliography on learning outcomes, because most of the time schools don't know what are learning outcomes. So these 6 documents plus the NCF, a rainbow of 7 colors, is what you should be going through with your team. Glocal is something that this curriculum framework stands for, I feel. It has an excellent combination of looking into our pioneers in education in India, who were right from Savitribai Phule to Rabindranath Tagore to Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekanand, Jitu Krishnamurthy, Gijubai Badeka, Tarabai Modak, and I think the early childhood in India was strengthened because of the visit of Maria Montessori, but the most important person that whom we have to salute is Gijubai Badeka for setting up the first preschool in Bhavnagar in 1916, much before independence. And then of course the global thinkers and theorists, Rousseau, Froebel, Dewey, Montessori, Piaget, Brunner, Vygotsky, Bronfenbrenner, Gardner, all these are also part of the NCF. So as you take your teachers through the NCF, please ensure that they go through these pioneers and their work. And Early Childhood Association has a lot of workshops that we do on all these theorists. So please make it a point. The panchakosh is I think something that wakes up our mind to the fact that as Indians, we follow too much of global practices, thinking that the world is ahead of us. But the panchakosh and its inclusion in the NCF, I think will give a grounding to everybody that India was always much ahead when it came to education and understanding of children and their development. And that's why the Panchakosh, which is part of the Taittiriya Upanishad, is very, very important. So look at the first aspect of the Panchakosh. It talks about physical development, or the Annamaya Kosh, where or the Pranamaya Kosh, where we talk about body awareness, how body is involved in learning, how sensorial learning is a very important part. Then you have the emotional, spiritual, and the ethical development. So socio-emotional ethical development covered in the Manomaya Kosh. And then you have the development of the intellect, which we are very fond of, intelligence, cognition, which is part of the Vijnanamaya Kosh. And also the Anandamaya Kosh, which talks about the aesthetic and cultural development. So I prefer, we go gaga over multiple intelligence theory, but it's ingrained in our culture. The Panchakosh was always there with us, and it's time for us to embrace it. Another important element that you should go through when you're going through the NCF is the fact that it focuses on the inner to the outer, which means internal and external. That you not only have to work on the external habits of a child, everything will come from internal. So the term intrinsic and extrinsic becomes very important. So whether it's self-learning, which becomes intrinsic learning, or self-discipline, which is again intrinsic, the NCF covers this very well in their 5 areas of vikas. So you have the sharirik vikas, the pranik vikas, the mansik vikas, the bauddhik vikas, and the chaitsik vikas. So you have physical development, development of life energy, which is missing in many curriculums, the balance of your energy, your enthusiasm, your smooth functioning of all your systems. So we talk about 5 senses, we talk about sensorial learning. There are 8 senses. Please go through that. And those 8 senses are what talk about the pranic vikas. And then you have your emotional and mental development, mansik vikas. You have your bauddhik vikas, which is your intellectual development, which is not only about remembering, it's about observation, experimentation, analytic. It talks about abstract and divergent thinking. So you see, spiritual development is also taken care of. Chaitsik vikas, happiness, love, compassion, spontaneity, freedom, aesthetic sense. All this is very spiritual. So when we talk about the national curriculum framework, whether for the foundational years, this foundational years framework is setting the stage for what we should know as educators. Go through it from the point of view of you may already have a curriculum. go through it. Does my curriculum have these elements? Because this is what is telling us that education now is about holistic development, and it's not just focused on any one skill or area. Aims, curriculum goals, competencies, and learning outcomes. This is the flow that they have given about curriculum planning. So if you go to page 85 onwards, it talks about the major components of a teaching plan. So when you are going through how does your school teach the children, this is a very important element in the NCF, because it talks about, of course, it talks about competencies and learning outcomes, but it also talks about teacher directed, teacher guided, and child led activities. We need a balance of that. Otherwise, most of our schools have only teacher guided, teacher directed activities. If you're talking about intrinsic learning, we need child led activities. How much should be a duration of every session? What should be the sequence of learning? What should be the sequence or the timetable of your day? It's all given in the NCF. The content and the material to be used in activities, classroom arrangements like seating, display, etc. Specific strategies, rather than always being chalk talk and blackboard activities or smart board activities, specific strategies that teachers can use for children, and most importantly, methods of assessment. So I think this slide kind of tells us all this is part of foundational learning, and all this is where the NCF handholds you to ensure that you do the best in your school. Lesson planning. We talk so well about lesson planning that yes, we plan lessons. But it sometimes becomes a burden for teachers, because teachers feel, I am doing a good job. Now, why do you want me to document it? I love the concept of Panchpadi in the National Curriculum Framework, and that's what's there on the screen right now. All the visuals and illustrations that I have used are part of the NCF document, so you will definitely get them there. But the Panchpadi concept of 5-step learning is so easy for teachers to implement. It has Aditi, that means the introduction, as the first step. Then it has Bodh. Bodh means conceptual understanding. This is where children will try to understand the core concepts through play, inquiry, project, whatever you planned for them. Then you have Abhyas. Abhyas means practice. Practice means you may give them an activity or a game, a range of interesting activities that you give them. Then you have Prayog. Prayog means application. Application is about how can I connect what I have learned to what I am doing. And then you have Prasar. Prasar means expansion, and it's all about telling others about what you have learned, sharing with others the skills that you have learned. So if you make your lesson planning in this way, you are actually covering entire concept of, or the entire circle of learning for a child's brain. So ensure that whatever planning is done with Aditi, Bodh, Abhyas, Prayog and Prasar. Very important. And it's so brilliantly explained that how you go from the start of your activity or lesson to the end result, which is about children talking about their learning. Excellent. One of the most important aspects which I loved about this NCF, and which all of you should actually go and check your classrooms for, is it talks about, on page 38, it talks about how children learn, the furniture layout. And it says 3 words that this is how children learn: choice, wonder, and joy. And I think that kind of tells you everything that you need to know about whether your school is a great place of learning, whether children will enjoy the lessons in your classroom, whether you should choose this toy, whether you should choose this app. Look at it from 3 words: choice, wonder, and joy. When it talks about classroom layout, what I have written on the left becomes very important, that learning at this stage is active and interactive process. They not only learn through play, they want to interact with other children. So if you are still going to have those table and desks, those front facing table desk, oh my God, please don't read the NCF, because then it's not meant for you. What you need is round tables where children can socialize, be with each other, because of neuroscience says that the brain is social. So when you put them in this compartmentalized seating arrangement, the socialness of the brain suffers and then it can't learn. And this is what is very importantly given in the NCF. And that's why I give this NCF good marks, because it's not only about curriculum planning. It connects theory to practice to everything. So it's very, very important to understand what I have put on the right also. The children like to do the following. Do you provide opportunities for it? Children will like to kick, run, play, tear, jump. Is your classroom meant for these things? And is your timetable taking care of these things? Which means, are you cooping up the children full day in the classroom? Or are you also taking them outside to another room, to an outdoor space? So this particular slide and this particular page, I think you should keep in mind. If you're building a new school, or if you already have a school, then look into it from the point of view of children's learning. You will be training your teachers with or without the NCF. But now with the NCF, of course, you need to train your teachers, and it takes care of it brilliantly on page number 91. It talks about how teachers can support children to learn better. How can you make your classroom practices with teaching strategies? Not just मैंने puppet show दिखाया, मैंने flash card दिखाया, नहीं, आपकी strategy क्या है? How much time are you giving for the children to talk? What kind of questions are you asking? So if you see on the left, listening, modeling, solving problems, questioning, provoking, researching, and making children independent are strategies that teachers have to use. So which means you will have to focus now on ensuring that your teachers not only know the what and the how, but they should be able to know the why. And I think one of the most important parts of this NCF is the why. A lot of people say 360 pages, but I think 360 pages was because the NCF did not only want to tell you the what and the how, it wanted to tell you the why, the reason behind, the research behind everything that is given in the NCF. A lot of pages in the NCF are about learning through play. And what they have said is play is not just about playing. Play is about conversations, play is about stories, play is about toys, play is about music, play is about art, and play is about craft. So that's what they say when they say play. And it's very, very important for you to have a look at this slide, that Gijubai Badeka was actually the one who came out with this entire story pedagogy. He taught through stories. He said children remember things better through stories. And if you see this slide, that's what it says, that these are the skills connected to the brain that a story develops in children. It develops focus and self-control. It develops perspective taking, communication, cognitive flexibility. Now look at what I have given you in this slide. Focus and self-control. When you retell a story, change a few facts and see where the children remember, and they tell you, no, you told us this last time. No, she wasn't wearing this color. Focus and self-control. Perspective taking. One of the most important ways in which children learn about emotional development and understanding empathy is through stories, because they become a part of every character in the story. They are able to take the place of every character, think like that character. Communication, of course, your language improves when you are telling stories. And cognitive flexibility. Sometimes when you say, okay, I'm going to continue this story later, or I have to move from one scene in the story to another scene, you are developing cognitive flexibility. So don't just look at stories as entertainment. Stories are not just entertainment. That's what this NCF talks about. So when you are planning, when you are discussing after this, please focus on story pedagogy. Very, very important. One of the other aspects about learning through play is the toy pedagogy. This NCF talks a lot about the toy pedagogy. And I've done my research, and as you can see on the left-hand side, the poster, every state of our country has different toys. Some of them are made of wool, some of them are made of wood, some of them are made of shells, some of them are made of all different materials. But what do we do in our classrooms? We have plastic toys. Everything is plastic. So all your role play corners has plastic. Maximum we will have is cloth because of the puppets and wood because of the blocks. But think about it. If you give me a wooden kitchen set and then you give me a steel kitchen set and then you give me a plastic kitchen set, not only am I feeling different materials, but my hold is also different for all these materials. My steel kitchen set will require a finer grip. My wooden kitchen set will require a bigger grip. So when you're giving me toys made of shells, I learned to be a little more careful with them. Because when I told my teachers also that we're going to include toys of different materials, they said, wow, ma'am, children will break them. Ma'am, aap mud ke toys deunge, children will break them. I said, no. Always remember Montessori whenever you think children are going to break something. She said, children learn by imitation. So the way you handle the material, children will watch you and handle the material like that. When you are handling that material, talk to the children. This is slightly delicate, so we will have to be careful. But don't take away from children the fact that India is a rich country when it comes to our heritage of toys. Think about it. Tribal children also play with those toys. They don't break them. So then why would your children break them? So please make use of the toy pedagogy that our country is known for. I enjoyed the pages on art and craft in the NCF because it says art and craft is not just about pachak activities. You know the pachak activities? Pachak activities I call where you take the palm of the child, you paint it, and then you make them do pachak on a piece of paper, and then you send them to wash their hands, and on that handprint you then draw a face and feet and say ye duck ho gaya. That's called a pachak activity, which is so bad for children because children did nothing in it. Children did not create anything in it. The teacher did it. This NCF talks about that. It says, please don't do art and craft activities like that. And when we talk about art and craft, it talks about drawing, painting, pasting, play modeling, tearing, cutting, folding, constructing. Your school displays should be rich with all different kinds of art and craft. Not just paper liya, sticking kiya, coloring kiya, painting kiya. No, have different. And also make it that, you know, if you are doing an art activity, give children different material and let them choose what they want to. So that each child's activity looks unique. Otherwise, आप classroom देखो 40 बच्चों के लगाए होंगे, all 40 look the same. No, we don't want that kind of factory nonsense. It's very, very important. And here I would say, if you have read our book Once Upon a Gift, it was Froebel who included this in the schools, and he called them occupations. So I'm so happy to see this Froebel occupations as part of the NCF. Please change the way you do art and craft in your schools. As you know, Nipun is a very important document, and our goal of the NEP is foundational literacy and numeracy. And what I enjoyed, there is a section called foundational literacy, but I enjoyed the section on foundational numeracy because I think numeracy is very weak in our country. We have a lot of things for phonics and this and that, but numeracy, we are not going from concrete to pictorial to abstract. Look at the right side of my screen. We go straight to abstract. We start doing worksheet activities with children. And that is why I loved pages 117 to 122, which talk about foundational literacy. And this, what I have put on the slide, is what I loved. They talk about the ELPS concept for numeracy, where E stands for experience, L stands for spoken language, P stands for pictures, and then S stands for written symbols. So which means when you're teaching children about numbers, first let them experience concrete objects for counting. Let them experience the spoken language of 1, 2, 3. So this is where your songs, will help that you sing with children. But be careful when you're singing number songs. First, choose forward counting songs before teaching them backward counting songs. So what's the difference? Forward counting songs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once I caught a fish alive, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that way. Backward counting songs are 5 little ducks went out one day, mama duck said quack, 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 and 4 little ducks came back, back, back. So this is backward counting. Till children have not learned forward counting, please don't do backward counting. And then of course pictures, and then comes writing of numbers. So I'm so happy that foundational numeracy is also now, that knowledge is being given to teachers how to do it in a scientific manner. Another very important aspect of the NCF is page 123 to 130, which talks about children's behavior. I mean, look at it. An NCF is also training teachers on how to handle children's behavior, how to understand children's behavior. There is not always one reason for a child's behavior. There can be multiple reasons which you have never even thought of. And it talks about that there are 4 kinds of behavior that you would notice in children. One is aggressive behavior, one is antisocial behavior, one is disruptive behavior, and one is inappropriate expression. So which means they cry or they scream or they shout. And what teachers are taught in this NCF is focus on your voice, focus on your words, focus on your body language, and focus on your attitude. I mean, it's a document that is a kind of a course in teacher training. Wonderful. Pages 144 to 149 focus on something which is very interesting, which is ways of organizing content. You know, you heard the word inquiry method or the project-based method. It gives you a different approaches that you can use when you are teaching children, like project-based approach or story-based approach, theme-based approach, or eclectic approach. And you must also read up on Rabindranath Tagore, because he also had come out with 3 different methods of teaching. So I'm very happy to see that India was always doing a lot of things that now the world is talking about, and it's time for us Indians to understand that local is the right way to go forward. Pages 191 to 199, extremely important because they talk about understanding and addressing developmental delay and disability. It gives the teachers steps. It tells the teacher that you are not an expert. You cannot help a child, or you are not authorized to make a diagnosis, but you can observe. You can identify, because early intervention helps. So if you see on the right hand side, there are steps that they have given of what a teacher can do to identify a learning problem, and how to talk to parents about it, and then how to seek specialist help. They've also given you the World Health Organization's 10 questions for screening. That's given on the left hand side. That if teachers have to screen children for a developmental delay or a disability, then these are the 10 things that you can do. So it is so rich in ensuring that a teacher is well equipped for all the things that she will need in her classroom. Then what I liked about the NCF is its focus on assessment, and it's a rich resource for training teachers on understanding assessment. Look at this slide. It talks about the principles for analyzing evidence from assessment, that teachers should focus not on what children don't know and can't do, but should focus on what they can. So then that will help you take the child ahead. They should have evidence before they label a child. That use multiple resources, multiple sources of observation, of evidence gathering. If you see this next slide, I say it is very important for us to move from assessment instead of grades and marks. This particular one is a self-assessment form where children also can use their own assessment. And if you see on the right hand side, what I loved was the 4 levels of learning. So instead of saying good, bad, can do better, there are 4 levels given of what a teacher can assess a child on. So I think this is going to create a positive environment in the classroom. Parents will actually know at what level of learning is my child, instead of just a B, C, or a good, bad, and an excellent. So these 4 levels of achievement, and they are called 4 levels of achievement. So each one is an achievement. And this is something I feel every school should include. And then we go to the next one, which is called scaffolding and gradual release of responsibility. I mean, I love this terminology. It's on page 88. Gradual release of responsibility. GRR. So you are scaffolding the child, which means you are helping the child, but you're not always helping the child. So if you can see on the left hand side, they've given 3 steps. I do, which means the teacher will demonstrate and model to the child the ideas. Then we do. Now the teacher will do it with the child, and now it's you do. So you do it on your own. So this is called gradual release of responsibility. And it's given so brilliantly in the NCF in this visual, which is there on your right hand side. What is the teacher responsibility and what is the child responsibility? I mean, please include all this in your curriculums, in the assessment. This is called supportive learning. This is called positive learning. I also like the term HPC, which is there in the curriculum, in the National Curriculum Framework. HPC means Holistic Progress Card, which means don't only give me how I'm doing in writing or reading, or which shapes I know or which colors I know. Please give me how I am in my socio-emotional development, how am I in my language development, how am I in my physical development. Give me a progress card which celebrates my uniqueness and celebrates my growth. Holistic progress card. Friends, let's move, let's change the way we are giving progress cards in our schools, because we give a report card, which is children are not accidents to be reported. Let's move to a holistic progress card. Now you have in the National Curriculum Framework from page 200 to 202, safety and security in schools. If you believe in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you will realize that without safety, no cognition happens. So these pages talk about physical, emotional, and child sexual abuse. It's extremely important for us to understand when in the foundational years, children will need to be monitored and supervised. You cannot make them responsible for their own safety. That comes later. You will have to ensure that your systems in the school are such that no child is anytime left alone, etc. So please read these pages. Excellent for school security. One of the reasons that I celebrate this NCF is also because of page 216. It talks about the age of admission, which is a dichotomy right now across the nation. And I wish state governments wake up and realize that your RTE or your national ECE policy, your NEP, they all talk about age of entry as 3 years in nursery. But we still have some silly states who have 2.5 as their entry. So I celebrate this page, and I salute the states where the child age of entry is 3 years. I think Gujarat was the recent state which has made the age of entry 3 years. We need more such states. One of the most important aspects in this NCF is from page 222 to page 223 is a section on leveraging technology. Let's not forget, friends, that we were completely technology dependent in the last 2 years of the pandemic. So let's not just throw away technology anymore. Let's keep the child's connect with technology, because we never know when a pandemic is going to come again. And that's why I like that this NCF talks about leveraging technology. And then all your annexures, which I spoke about assessment, about everything, about developmental, are all given in the end in these page numbers. Very, very important for us to understand, to go through this. And I'm going to leave you with this slide. Gijubai Badeka had a lovely poem, "This Will Not Do in Our School." It says, it will not do if the walls in our school are covered with paint. Okay. that only the walls are covered in paint. It will not do if there is dust and cobweb in our corners. It will do if the floors are not covered by carpets. It will not do if there is litter and dirt strewn on them. So it is very important to understand Gijubai had a concept of a school, that what is actually important in a school and what isn't. And sadly, friends, somewhere in our haste, in our thirst for more admissions, we've started focusing on things which are not important instead of the things which are important. And that's what this NCF does. It wakes us up. It wakes us up to make us understand this is what is important. Start focusing on it. I think it's time we have, instead of a child being ready for school, it's time that the school is ready for the child. And that, my friends, is the core of the National Curriculum Framework for foundational years. Enjoy reading it. Thank you.